So let's reach for some inspiration together to the world of film. So in the last 30 years or so, fountain pens are shown on screen very infrequently. And when they are, it's usually as a symbol of that character's uniqueness, their eccentricities, their creativities and particularness. It usually means that you're dealing with a very interesting and unique person, kind of like all of us and why we're into fountain pens. So today what I'd like to do is to delve into some films that feature fountain pens in a very prominent and interesting way. So let's start off big with Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. This film from 1989 was the third film in the Indiana Jones original trilogy, and it really probably would have been better if they just stopped there. It was directed by Steven Spielberg and starred Harrison Ford and the amazing Sean Connery. So I think we all remember the scenes where Indiana Jones's father is inside the tank and he's wrestling with one of the villains, and he gets his pen out of his pocket and squirts some ink in the villain's face and is able to overpower him. And of course, Marcus Brody, who used to be this urbane, sophisticated character, but sadly was taken down to a comic relief buffoon in this film, but still he had a fantastic line when he says, "Henry, don't you see the pen? The pen is mightier than the sword." And of course that made a huge impression to all of us who are into fountain pens when we're watching this film. Now that fountain pen was made by Conway Stewart, and Conway Stewart produces an exact replica of that pen today. And in fact, I have the second one made right here. So this pen is the Conway Stewart Series 58 Indiana Jones replica. The pen is mightier than the sword. And first off, I can tell you it's very much like a vintage pen, has the same size, very petite, very elegant, very beautiful. The three cap bands are 9-carat gold. The rest of the gold on there is 23 carats, including the lever for the lever fill, which is also a necessary part of this pen because you can't squirt ink into a villain's face unless it's a lever fill pen. It also has an 18-carat gold nib that's made by Yovo but is hand-tuned by John Serica. So this is pretty much exactly like the prop that was used in the film. And it even has "the pen is mightier than the sword" engraved on the barrel. So it's an absolutely exquisite vintage size, very much feels like a vintage pen, made bespoke by Conway Stewart for you if you want one as well. But an absolutely amazing pen. Okay, let's transition from the world of Indiana Jones to the south of France and Ridley Scott's A Good Year from 2006. This film stars Albert Finney, Russell Crowe, Abbie Cornish, and Marion Cotillard in a lovely love story about rediscovering your past, your passions, and a quieter, more enriching life. There is a very important scene where this disillusioned stockbroker goes back to his deceased uncle's villa in the south of France and goes through his things and finds his bottle of green Waterman ink and his old red Ripple Waterman fountain pen. So he takes the ink in the pen and he smells them, and it's like a Proust Madeleine. It takes him back to his early teen years with his uncle, and he remembers vividly what it was like then to experience that place in its prime. And it's a really moving scene, and it's just so fantastic that pens and inks are just central to the story of this movie. Now, the pen that's featured is a vintage Waterman Red Ripple fountain pen. I couldn't quite make out exactly which pen it is. That's not really my specialty. It is some sort of Waterman 5 or 52. It has a circular breather hole in the nib, so I don't think it's a flex nib. But regardless, it's certainly vintage, it's beautiful, and it fits into the scene absolutely perfect. And this film is very important to me. I like to play it at the beginning of summer. It just reminds me to just savor those quiet moments, the sunshine, the times with your family. It's absolutely charming. And the original book is from one of my favorite authors, Peter Mayle. If you follow this channel, you know I love A Year in Provence. It's mostly forgotten now, but it's a very charming book series. And this was a later fictional book that's in the same universe, if you will. So an absolutely delightful film, and it's so fantastic that it features fountain pens so prominently. I hesitated including this film, but it has a fountain pen scene that is so perfect in showing a character that I felt like I had to use it. And this is from Inglourious Basterds, a Quentin Tarantino film from 2009 that stars Brad Pitt and Christoph Waltz, Diane Kruger, and many others. It's an interesting film. It's not one of my favorites. I'm not a big Quentin Tarantino fan. I frankly think he's probably the most overrated director out there. So feel free to come at me in the comments on that, but I generally don't enjoy any of his films after the first two. But this has such a perfect scene, and Christoph Waltz is so good in it, and it's at the beginning. And you have this incredibly villainous character come in, very dignified, very polite, talking to a farmer named Mr. La Petite. And he sits down and they're discussing things, and he pulls out his folio, opens it flat on the table in a very particular way, then sets down a bottle of Pelican ink in the corner, and then takes out his fountain pen and proceeds to fill it. Now, it's really interesting. It's a button-filled fountain pen, and he only pumps it once as he puts it into the ink. And you would ask yourself, well, what's the point of that? He wouldn't get much of a fill there. And I was thinking about this for a while, and at first I thought maybe he's just topping the pen off. But then I just think that this whole thing is sort of a ritual, a way of distracting the guy that he's very politely but very firmly and manipulatingly interrogating, just to keep him slightly off balance, keep him focused on different details. But it also tells us a lot about the character of Hans Landa. He is a very particular person. He has some OCD tendencies in lining things up very particularly. He certainly is well rehearsed in how to fill the pen. He does it almost without looking. It's very much an exaggerated ritual that seems more designed for effect than for its actual purpose. And I think this gives us insight into the level of sophistication, intelligence, refinement, and just absolute danger that we are in with Colonel Hans Landa. So it is a fantastic scene in a very interesting movie. So I just had to include it. So what do you think of these films? Are there any others that you wish I included? Please let me know in the comments. Also, what do you think of Quentin Tarantino? What do you think of these pens? Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. So if you've reached this point in the video, consider subscribing. We go to many interesting places, and I'd love to have you with us while we do. Also, if you want to support this channel even more, membership is available. Come on, behind the scenes. There's a pen pal group. There's a lot of interesting things going on there. I'd love to have you. So I make new videos every week, and I have a live show Tuesday nights at 8. So I can promise you, we will see each other again very soon, further up the road. So take care.
Oh.